CNN political commentator Paul Begala, Matt Mowers, a former Trump administration advisor and the president of Valcorp Global Public Strategy, and Jackie Kucinich, CNN political analyst, as well as Washington bureau chief of the Boston Globe. It's great to see you all. Matt, let me start with you. You worked for Donald Trump. Are you surprised to see the hold he has on his party, despite not campaigning that intensely in the run-up to this caucus?
No, I'm not, because in a lot of ways he's a quasi-incumbent. I mean, you've got to remember, if you look back 4 years ago, over 90% of Republicans had cast a ballot for him as the sitting incumbent president. And muscle memory is hard to forget. So you have a lot of Republicans who are conditioned to vote for Donald Trump. For those who are trying to defeat Donald Trump in this primary process, Iowa always seemed like an odd place to try to make your mark. It's a caucus, usually just the most intense and hardcore of Republicans show up to vote. We saw the weather did actually play a role, among other reasons, why you went from 186,000 votes in the caucus 8 years ago down to about 110,000 just last night. So what you had was essentially the core of the Republican base show up and vote. It's also the reason you saw Ron DeSantis actually squeak into second place despite some recent polling, because his campaign really did target those habitual Republican caucus goers. I think New Hampshire is going to be a little bit different. You are going to have a closer race. It is a primary, not a caucus. And as we know, New Hampshire has a tendency to like to surprise a bit. Donald Trump is still the front runner and the favorite. He's still anticipated to win, likely by even double digits. But you will see a closer race.
That's a bold prediction. You're predicting double-digit Trump victory in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think you'll see 10 plus points unless you see some sort of seismic turnout shift where independents show up in such droves to vote for likely Nikki Haley. They could prevent him from winning.
Okay.
But most would suspect there's not going to be enough of those voters to actually carry her above Trump. It'll get her competitive, though.
Well, we'll see. Jackie, I want to go to you because, look, a lot of politics at this stage is about momentum, and that's about expectations. Nikki Haley seemed to have momentum coming in, but for whatever reason, may have been the snow, didn't convert. She won one county by one vote. I wonder, going to get your take on this quote from her victory speech last night to see if you think it holds water.
When you look at how we're doing in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, and beyond, I can safely say tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
Jackie, do you think that's credible, or should she have edited her speech? Is it a two-person race?
I'm not sure I'm not sure South Carolina and beyond really, beyond what? It holds water at this point. I mean, it's in theory a long primary, though this time might not be so much. I don't think this is a two-person race at this point, perhaps for second place. But former President Trump is so far ahead. I mean, she might be able to close the margin in New Hampshire. I wouldn't look at Iowa as anything having to do with New Hampshire and Nikki Haley. She didn't have the organization that DeSantis or Trump had in Iowa this entire time. Not we're talking about that yesterday, but going into New Hampshire, she really has focused a lot of attention there. Whether she's going to get close enough or even surpass Trump to get some momentum, this is kind of her last shot, really, to show that she can stand up and defeat Trump before we get into these states. The further south you go, the more popular the former president is, and the harder, I don't care if it is her home state, it gets for Nikki Haley.
Well, Paul, I agree. It's win, not place or show for Nikki Haley in New Hampshire, but it's an electorate that's more independent. It's an open primary. What I want to ask you about as the Democrat is you get the sense that some Democrats, including the Biden White House, are looking forward to running against Donald Trump. I think we've seen this movie before, though. Do you think they're underestimating the appeal of the former president?
Yeah, to quote George W. Bush, don't misunderestimate this guy. Okay, Democrats don't like him. The Biden White House doesn't like him. But they need to respect the 72 million people who voted for him last time, the 50% of Iowa caucus attendees in a terrible blizzard who turned out to support him. And I think they do. I think if I could read Joe Biden's mind, he'd be saying, look, I beat him once, I'm gonna beat him again. And I think they come at this with some confidence, having defeated Donald Trump before. The Iowa was such good news for Trump. but of course, as a Democrat, I did find a piece of bad news. Really alarming news if I worked for Trump. It was in the Iowa poll, the Des Moines Register NBC poll that Ann Seltzer does. Among Nikki Haley's voters, granted only 20% of caucus attendees, but of Nikki Haley's voters, 47% of them say they would vote for Biden over Trump. So this is, I think, why Mr. Trump last night, uncharacteristically for him, tried to signal a note of unity, try to coalesce that party around him, because I think he's seeing the same thing. There's a real risk for Trump in the things that make him unbeatable in the primary may make him unelectable in the general election. I mean, there's still a lot of Americans that don't like it when you sort of, quote the Nazis, call people vermin. He's still insulting John McCain, God rest his soul, who was a war hero. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that, look, it worked in Iowa, delivered him a crushing victory. But I think that the Trump campaign people, who are professionals, you have a much better campaign this time than the last time. Chris LaCivita, Susie Wiles, I think they're looking ahead and saying, hey, we got to make sure that we can appeal to those Nikki Haley moderates. And I think that's the thing that's got to worry the Trump people.
All right, Matt, to that point, I want you to take a look at Donald Trump's strongest areas of support according to these entrance polls, because I think it's interesting and revealing. 74% of folks who never attended college. 61% of those who describe themselves as very conservative. 58% of over age 65. These are his strongest demos. This is core Trump support. That would indicate that he is strongest among voters who are less likely to be those swing voters in a general election. You think that's fair?
It is. I mean, and I think some of the strength you saw in his numbers yesterday were as much about who showed up to vote as it was his actual support. I mean, these were the hardcore Republican activists who showed up to vote. These are the folks who traditionally have been going to every single Trump event and Trump rally for the last 8 years. He is going to have to show that he can broaden that appeal. And that's why it'll be very telling to see how he performs in New Hampshire, where you do have a true history of independents participating in the primary process, unlike the Iowa caucuses, where you will have a sizable number of self-identified moderates, not just independent moderates, but Republican moderates who are going to be voting as well. And so if he cements a double-digit win in New Hampshire, I think it's going and shows progress in winning some of those voters, it's going to show that he maybe can actually build a new coalition for the general election. But I do think it's hard to draw too many conclusions about his ability to appeal outside the party base purely based upon the results of the caucus yesterday, because it was such a emblematic of really just where the core of the Republican Party is.
Yeah, I mean, again, 110,000 voters in a state of 3.2 million. It is a crazy way we decide things in this country. Jackie, before we go, one of Nikki Haley's core argument was really a general election argument. It's about electability. It's about being pulled together a broader coalition. And I was struck by the gender split of these caucus goers. I want to throw it up for you. Trump won 53% of women in the Iowa caucus. Nikki Haley only 20%. Now, I know women don't only vote for women, but are you surprised to see an almost 2x delta with Trump winning women over Nikki Haley, given her historic candidacy?
I think, but Trump has never really lost support among Republican women. It's been independents. It's been those that are his strongest supporters have never wavered there. And what you're looking at in Iowa are some of the absolute strongest, most hardline conservatives and particularly evangelicals. I really that doesn't surprise me. If we go down the line, we see something like that in New Hampshire. Get back to me. Then there'll be some that will be pretty shocking.
Well, we'll dig into the New Hampshire data. I got to say that did surprise me. I was a great state. It defies stereotypes. I think this caucus is self-selecting, but I was surprised to see Trump win twice as many women as Nikki Haley. Paul, I haven't forgotten about you. I love you. We're going to get you on the other side of this break.